My name is Stephan Lewandowsky. I'm a professor of cognitive science at the University of Bristol. Welcome to my exp. Well, all of us have grown up in democracies. We're all used to being in a democracy. Now, what we perhaps, though, have forgotten is that one of the reasons that democracies work is because we engage in reasoned, evidence-based debate to sort out how best to make decisions about our future as a society. That's what democracy is about. It isn't just about voting. It is about having a constructive deliberation about how to solve problems. And the core for that to happen is the acceptance of evidence. Some things are true, other things are not supported by evidence. And what we have to do is we have to navigate that space to have a constructive debate. Now, misinformation is undermining that process. Misinformation has always been around. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq in 2003, which didn't exist, but which were, as we now know, conjured up by governments in order to go to war and invade Iraq. One of Donald Trump's advisors referred to alternative facts famously after the inauguration when she disputed the very obvious fact that fewer people attended Donald Trump's inauguration than Barack Obama's 4 years previously. So the moment you do that, you're undermining democratic discourse. You're undermining democracy, because if you say, oh, I have my own set of facts, well, then there is no communication possible. We cannot have a debate if some people are making stuff up and then present that invention as an alternative fact. We must have a shared belief and acceptance of the rules by which we arrive at things that we think are supported by evidence. Now, the real problem with this is it isn't just what it does to democracy now. It is what happened in the 1930s under fascism in Italy and Germany, because it was precisely that view of truth as something that isn't subject to evidence, but that is intuitive, and that is being felt rather than being supported by evidence. It is being felt, and that feeling is articulated by a leader. It is that approach to truth that was the defining attribute of fascism. And we know what that did to the world. I don't think anybody can argue that that was a good or positive outcome. I guess I would argue that populism and nationalism is resurgent in many parts of the world, including South America, for example, where in Brazil we have a populist politician who very much acts like other populist politicians in the Western world, like Donald Trump, for example. In India, we have a government that, as far as I can tell, is retreating from democracy and becoming increasingly nationalistic and ethnocentric. So I think this is in part a global problem. Now, my guess would be that if the West showed moral and political leadership to deal with this problem, then that would make it at least a little more difficult for leaders of other countries to go down the same path. So I'm of the opinion that having Donald Trump as president act in the way he does is not exactly a good role model for the rest of the world. And it's very difficult for us to expect African or Asian or South American countries to be model citizens when the leading nation in the Western world is acting very differently. One of the reasons I'm optimistic about our chances to invigorate democracy and not to fall into the populist trap is because we know that citizens are capable of deliberating and coming to reasoned decisions. And all we have to do is to provide them with the space and the time to do that. The best example I can think of is the Republic of Ireland, which has had several recent referenda, among them one about abortion and one about gay marriage, which I think are the most emotive, hot-button issues you can possibly debate. And yet the country managed to do that without polarization and without creating a mess that followed the Brexit referendum in the UK. And I think the reason that happened, the reason that Ireland was able to navigate these really challenging issues was because they had deliberative assemblies that were discussing the issues underlying those referenda before they happened.